Hello and welcome to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. I am your host, Matthew Loomis. This show is sponsored by BuildYourOwnBlog.net, the full-service destination for people who want to start their own WordPress blog and achieve long-term success. Visit BuildYourOwnBlog.net to start your new blog today. My guest is a high school teacher in the state of Florida who is pioneering a unique classroom curriculum that's teaching high school students the subject of personal branding. He's become a self-taught expert on how our digital footprints are formed over time and how those digital footprints impact us in the present and for the rest of our lives. He's teaching teens to think about their online presence, how they come across to the world, and he helps young people do more than just consume online media by including in his curriculum online marketing skills so that teens can begin creating and shaping their digital footprint in positive ways to better their future. He has a vision to spread his personal branding curriculum into high schools all over the U.S. and the world because he is a passionate person about the importance of this topic. From prospective employers to love interests, everyone gets searched online. What people find when they search us has a huge impact on our lives, and my guest today wants teenagers to understand this. Okay, let's get our chronicle on with teacher and social media enthusiast, Jason Schaffer. Hi, Jason. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Jason, you are a teacher at North Broward Prep, which is a private high school in Florida that is requiring its students to enroll in a personal branding course. Give us an overview of what this course is about and its purpose for high school students.
Well, I'd like to start, Matt, by saying that I really think I have the greatest job ever. I spend my days helping students discover their passions and then help them, at first at least, to provide examples of how they can use different social networks and learn from a variety of experts. And I simply provide them some lessons and some inspiration and introduce them to those who they may want to look up to. I wanted this course to be grounded in real-world applications and ideas. We focus on digital literacy, citizenship, storytelling, marketing, branding, social networking, blogging, leadership, and all of that stuff really, through my own 5 years of research, is what it takes to build a personal brand.
Yeah, where does a blog fit into all this?
For us, that's the social networking, the storytelling. It's a big role for my kids, especially who love to write.
Now, I don't know if there's one accepted definition of personal branding, so I wanted to ask you, how do you define personal branding?
Well, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that for you. Today, in my opinion, it's simple. Personal branding equals reputation. When someone hears your name or they see your name online, what do they think about you? What do they expect from you? What are the values you represent? What interests you? What type of experiences or stories are you sharing with other people? Yeah, in my opinion, whether you're online or offline, these are attributes of a personal brand and qualities that I would want my kids to have.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good, positive thing for high schoolers that you've got going on here. Was this course your idea?
Well, I can't take credit for the original idea, but I did seize on a fantastic opportunity. Up until this course was created, our school, like pretty much every other high school, offered a required computer applications course. They learned PowerPoint, and it was about dinosaurs most of the time. But my mentor and my supervisor at school, Dr. Joan McGettigan, she had the vision to make a course that was more relevant to what today's teens are using and what tools they're going to need for college and beyond. It was a fantastic idea, and when the opportunity presented itself to create the curriculum, even though they didn't give me much time to start, it really did present a course that kids have fallen in love with.
Now, are there textbooks for this?
I'm working on one.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, so, my kids watch a lot of TED Talks, and there is a lot of blogs like yours out there that my kids can look at and really learn from pros. And that's what I want them to do. Not learn from a textbook, not learn from me. I'm not the expert. I'm the curator of the information I'm finding on the web,
Mhm.
which, Matt, ultimately that is what I'm trying to get them to be able to learn how to do.
Right. So, why do you feel so strongly that young people in high school should already be learning about personal branding?
All right, let's be clear. Everyone has a brand. Whether
Hmm.
you know it or not, the people that you know, even people you don't know, they all have impressions of you.
Hmm.
We've been labeled from birth to primary school. And
Hmm.
in the professional world have as well by our bosses and coworkers.
Right.
So when it comes to teenagers, I just want them to know that to understand their brand, it's important because then you can control it.
Hmm.
Some people like to believe that these kids are the digital generation because they've learned to grow up in the digital age, and that's true in terms of consuming. But what I've found out is that they're not always interested or know how to create.
Hmm.
And as terms of bringing this to the kids, by building a brand, they're learning how to curate their own information. They're learning how to create videos, blogs, channels, all sorts of stuff. And these are tools they're going to be able to take with them for a long time.
Do you encourage them to build their own platform?
So, we spend 5 weeks with what I call self-discovery exercises. Who were you? Who are you? Who are you going to be? And that takes, it's a 13-week course. That takes probably 5 weeks.
Hmm.
And the rest of the time, they spend on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, plus more for the different collections that they can follow and chat groups they can join,
Hmm.
uh, blogging, creating a YouTube channel, and really letting the world know, what they're interested in and how they want to be presented, hopefully in a professional and positive way. But there's only so much I can control when I call the class personal branding.
Yeah.
I can't be too strict with what they decide to produce. As long as, we have a school honor code, and as long as they're following that, it's game.
Yeah. And you make a good point. I think we have a tendency to think just because they grew up with technology that they're somehow uh, already branding and marketing savvy or something.
Yeah, so
And you're
it's
finding that's not the case.
listen, it's the social media age. 97% of my kids are using Instagram and Snapchat. What they share and post about themselves, who they follow, who follows them, what comments are they leaving. This is their digital footprint. They're going to be Googled by colleges, internships, love interests,
Yeah.
and they need to know that the decisions they're making now are going to be what they are judged on ultimately, and
Hmm.
that's how people are going to interpret them.
Yeah, and we'll get to into that a little bit here in a second. So the course has been going on since I believe the summer of 2012.
Yeah.
Have you had any former students come back to you and tell you how helpful the course has been for them?
So I will tell you that most of my students, we try to get them as freshmen because we really want them to start curating early so that they are presenting something that's authentic by the time they're
Hmm.
juniors and seniors applying for colleges. I have had upperclassmen who have graduated and some entering the workforce now. Um, my most recent examples that I could think of is a student who, while in my class actually,
Hmm.
decided that his focus was going to be bodybuilding and weightlifting. And he wrote a blog and he created a YouTube channel where he gave tutorials. And he was noticed by an online bodybuilding website. And they asked him to enter a contest. And he won a $3,000 cash prize and a spread in their magazine.
Oh,
And,
wow.
it inspired him to, and it let him know that, there are people out there that care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Another student, we're an international school, so I have students all over the world, and
Hmm.
a student who's living in China now after graduation emailed me a few weeks ago that the class inspired her to spend her whole gap year creating a blog, uh, focusing on helping Chinese students better adapt to American culture. Like that's what she wants to spend her gap year doing.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. It brings joy to them. It brings joy to me. And,
Hmm.
when they're writing and they're creating for a public audience, not just their teacher, they put a lot of work into it.
Right. When you are writing more than just for the teacher, it's like out there for the world to see. It does make a difference. Yeah. So, okay. So your mission is to, quote, provide an opportunity for students in which they gain real world experience and expertise by utilizing the most relevant technology to promote their personal journeys, experiences, passions, and goals.
Whew.
Okay. Yeah. That's a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Let's break that down a bit. Jason, first of all, how does your class help students gain real world experience and expertise?
All right. So we'll keep this short and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy as a teacher, human being, and future parent is that children in school need not to be memorizing, but need to learn the tools that the subject would require if they wanted to become that in the future. So in a history class, I don't want my students memorizing dates and facts. I want them to learn how to be historians. In an English class, I want my students to learn how to become writers and respect poetry and craft. So in personal branding, it's the same thing, right? I alluded to it earlier. I want them to learn marketing skills, right? So we build logos, we create videos. I want them to practice their writing because in the real world, they're not going to be writing essays. They're going to probably be running businesses and maybe needing a blog. And so that's what we write. And I want them to hear from experts. So I said it before, a lot of TED Talks and a lot of websites that we visit. Instead of a textbook on how to use, Google Apps, they can figure that out. That's what they're good at. But it's how to apply it to not just the classes I'm in now, not just college, but when I'm in a real world situation, how do I take my stories and make them relevant? So we talk about job interviews, and their summative assessment is to create a resume and present themselves to the classmates. So, they know, and I tell them that the world is changing rapidly. I can't prepare them for anything specific because who knows what's going to be in 5 years. But the lessons that they're learning are grounded in the idea that they can take control over their own learning and who they ultimately become. The irony is that's exactly how I created this class.
Okay, yeah. Speaking of resumes, Jason, I'm just curious. I've heard that, and read that resumes are kind of going out of being used. Do you think those are going to disappear, or?
I think Twitter is their resume now. I mean, LinkedIn is their resume now. Their digital footprint is their resume. Background checks are probably disappearing too, because who needs a background check? You can find out anything you want on social media. But I don't have them make a traditional Word document. We use a cool website called visualize.me, and it's an infographic resume that the kids really get a kick of, seeing their passions and their interests really be reflected on an official resume document. It's cool for them.
Interesting. Visualize.me. I'll have to check that out. So does that fall into your second point, which is in your mission, you want to utilize the most relevant technology? Is that an example of that?
Yeah. So again, that's the word relevance there on purpose because it's always changing. So what's relevant today? We use a lot of Google apps. My school is blessed to be recently named an Apple Distinguished School, but we've been a Google Apps school for the last 5 or 6 years. So we use all of the Google apps, whether it's Slides or Docs or Blogger, which I know you have something to say about. But also presentation tools like Haiku Deck, Prezi, YouTube, social networks like Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn. All of these things are going to be relevant in the next few years, especially when they get to college and they start thinking about internships. This is the stuff that they're going to need to learn, how to tell a story. I have a brother-in-law who asked me, how do I get away from boring PowerPoints? And I'm like, I've got some ideas for you. This is what I do.
Great. And you close your mission statement with, quote, to promote their personal journeys, experiences, passions, and goals. Why should a student want to publicly share those things online?
That's a great question. I know because I've spoken to students who believe that life is personal and it's private, and I can't tell them that that's not accurate. You have a right to privacy, and you have a right not to share what is most private to you. But I will tell you that in the first week of my class, we do a lesson where we pretend we're college admissions officers. And we look at two students. They're not real students. And we look at their blog, and we look at their Twitter account, and we look at their Facebook account, and we dissect it. And when they're over, they choose which one they like the best. And then I say to them, I made a mistake. There's two other students. And I say, the reason I forgot about them is because one of them, when I Googled their name, everything I found was on private. And the other student, when I Googled their name, I found nothing. And I asked them, does anybody want to change their vote? You can pick one of the two kids that we've learned a lot about, or you can change your vote to someone we know nothing or someone who is on private, and make your own determination as to why that might be. Never, never have they chosen one of those other two students. And they realize, and I try to express early on, that social media today is like a superpower. And you could choose not to use it, or you can choose it to do good. The same reason, Matt, that I'm talking to you today is because I've decided to put myself at the forefront and set the example. And I want my students to know that anything is possible if you're willing to at least put yourself out there a little bit to the level you're comfortable with. And good things can happen.
Jason, I would like to talk to you for a moment now about the benefits of some of the dangers that you find with online communities. Can you talk about that? Like, you're dealing with 14, 15-year-old kids. You're encouraging them to get involved in online communities. How do you deal with the dangers?
Well, the first thing is that they're already there. And so my responsibility is to make sure that while they're there, they are as safe as possible. We have sort of made some arrangements at school where things like YouTube, it's restricted to only channels that are approved. But the truth is, these types of restrictions are not what we're aiming for. We're trying to open up our campus so that our students are learning responsibly how to take control over their, of themselves. So our conversation generally starts with a very good CNN Anderson Cooper documentary called #Being13. And if you haven't seen it, it's pretty good.
I haven't.
So when I created this class 5 years ago, we focused a lot on what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience has been, when I did that, I sounded like the adult in the room who was telling everybody that they were misbehaving badly under an assumption. And so we've toned it down a lot, actually, with trying to focus on the good. And so we focus more on, okay, what information are you comfortable with being out there? If it's not X, Y, and Z, let's make sure that we understand our privacy settings so that we can make those adjustments. Let's understand that there are people out there who are intentionally hurting other people's feelings. And so if you are in that situation with something that you share, please bring it to my attention. Know that it's possible, and let an adult help you deal with it. We also talk about making sure that the information that they're sharing doesn't include phone numbers, addresses. I mean, even as simple as when you're posting to your social network, making sure that your geo-tracking is not available on the pictures that you're taking. But it's more for them to be aware. It's not necessarily something that I can control for 90 students. It's ultimately a conversation that we hope is happening not just in the classroom, but at home. But this is definitely something that is an important topic. Not to get too far off, but I was in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, meeting with a panel discussing this exact question. Where is the school's role in privacy and making sure that our kids are safe.
Hmm.
And it's something that I think will be more important moving forward as uh, students become more comfortable using these things and think they know it.
So let's talk about the benefits then. What are the positive things that online communities provide for young people?
So I've thought about this question for a long time. The fact is that it gets to the root of what I ask my students to think about. Why? Why are we doing this? Um, and the reason is because they have a common goal. It's to get into college. It's to get a good job. It's to impress the people that can make decisions about them throughout their lives. And the benefits, in my opinion, of connecting with people you may never any way meet. Sorry,
Hmm.
it's too easy today to learn from experts across the planet and to limit yourself to the 7 teachers that you have on your schedule or the friends in your circle. You're doing yourself a disservice by not connecting with like-minded people who have similar interests, passions, and goals. I don't want them following accounts that are inappropriate or that are, not guiding them towards their goals.
Hmm. That sounds, yeah, really reasonable, and I like that. There's so many people out there that we can connect with and impact our lives and make our lives richer, and share common interests with folks from around the world. And that may be hard for them to find very many people in their local community, like certain interests.
Yeah, and you're taking a tool that they already love, whether it's
Hmm.
Instagram or Snapchat. My students love being on their computers, their iPads, their phones. They would take that any day over listening to me give them a lecture on marketing and business.
Yeah.
Doing it themselves is what they really, they don't fight you on it. They just do it. And it's amazing.
Hmm. I'm just curious, what are the most popular social media platforms today, right now, with teens?
Well, thank goodness my students are not using things like Kick and those other ones that are really getting some people into trouble. They are all about Snapchat.
Hmm.
If they can put little cat ears on their heads and take a picture of it, they are in heaven. Instagram, I think, is slowly losing its favor. Facebook,
Hmm.
forget about it. I'll guess maybe 20% of my students use it.
Hmm.
Maybe 50% have an account. Uh,
Okay.
it's the Snapchat uh, generation and Pokemon Go. Forget that. They love that.
Okay. Right. Absolutely. So they're not using Twitter very much?
No, I have a couple of my athletes who have been sort of forced into Twitter by their coaches
Okay.
without any instruction really as to why they should be doing it or what they could be using it for.
Hmm.
So I run into a couple of kids who have an account, but generally speaking, they're not on Twitter and none of them are on LinkedIn. They love when they log on to LinkedIn for the first time that they see their parents. They think it's
Right.
like feel like they've invaded their parents' space, like some of their parents have invaded their Instagram space.
Right. Isn't that a big reason why Facebook is no longer popular, because all the parents came in?
Yeah, we invaded, right? The adults invaded the space, and
Yeah.
I tell them it's important to have a Facebook account because the people who are going to Google them are probably more likely to Facebook them, and
Hmm.
they want to have a presence there too. They don't like that idea typically, but
Yeah.
I try to encourage it. It's like being in the
Yeah.
phone, you
Yeah.
know?
I've read that they mostly do it to appease the parents. Like they'll post something every once in a while, you know?
In this case, they do it to appease me, but it's their virtual way of locking the door, right?
Hmm.
They go to a
Hmm.
website that their parents don't know how to use, and once they learn how to use it, they find something else.
Right. in our generations had our own ways of doing that back in the day.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
Never.
So social media platforms definitely make up our digital footprint. They're a big part of it. Why, Jason, do you think so many people don't realize the importance of the digital footprint? What makes it so important, and why are so many people still clueless about it?
I really think that there's certainly a generation gap. There's a certain demographic that is focused on their business success and working and raising children, and getting into social media for work is not what they want. They want that, escape, connect with their cousins in Georgia, and connect with their long lost friends and relatives around the globe. They're not going home and at 7 o'clock at night wanting to log on to Twitter and start tweeting about their business.
Right.
But what I want them to realize, and what I want my kids to realize, is that this is the new resume, like I told you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it so important is, if I want to hire someone, if I want to offer someone a scholarship, I want to know what motivates them, what drives them.
Yeah.
And what better way than a social media account that they've been posting to for the last 7 years on a hourly basis sometimes.
Yeah.
That is a picture that speaks 50 bazillion words.
Yeah. So you encourage them. Yeah. So
Yeah, harness the power.
yeah, we're harnessing Skype right now. We're laughing because we had a little freeze there for a second. Do you encourage your students to, speaking of social media, do you encourage them to keep all their profiles public, or is it okay to have a private profile?
So this has been a question that comes up a lot. I've read from other experts that, it's okay to have a private account as long as you've got some that are open. And I can't disagree with that for the reasons that they just believe that people deserve a private space. What I will say is that if the things you're posting, the things you're sharing, align with your morals, align with your values, what's the use of making it private? What's the benefit? So again, that's what direct messages are for. And if you think that anything you post on a direct message or even an email, a private account even, if you live under the illusion that that is actually private, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice, because we all know that no matter what you share, once you put it onto a computer, you don't control it anymore. So I almost feel like putting it on public purposefully reminds you that nothing's private and you better be careful.
Right. But isn't that one of the reasons why Snapchat is so popular with teens, is because it disintegrates, within a few minutes or something?
Yeah, they hated it when I told them that they were hacked like 2 years ago, and there's tons of sites out there just calling themselves hacked Instagram, and hacked Snapchat pages, and they freak out when they hear that.
Okay.
They don't realize that this stuff is so vulnerable.
Right. I also read that it's the cool thing to do is to, when you're on Instagram, you only keep like 10 or 15 pictures up, and the rest you delete. If anything doesn't get 60 or more likes, then they delete them. Is this true?
The first time I heard it, I could not believe it. That was the question I asked them. Would you delete a photo if it didn't get enough likes? And I couldn't believe that every single student raised their hand and said they would, because that's not the world I live in. I don't count likes. I don't count favorites. I don't count followers. I share things for me. I know that people will be looking and learning from it, but ultimately my goal is to do what I want to do. And I can't believe that so many of my students really care enough that they would delete a photo just because. For me, this is something that in the last year I thought a lot about. I had a friend who passed away, and he was heavy into social media. He loved it. He used it all the time.
Mm.
And when he passed away, his accounts became like an obituary of beautiful memories.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
His children one day are going to want to know about their dad, and
Hmm.
they're be able to find out.
Hmm.
Uh, that was something I always wished. I always wished I could see what my parents were like when they were my age, like in Back to the Future. uh,
Yeah.
today we're going to be able to do that
Right.
uh,
That
because
is a
we're
good point.
sharing everything.
Right. Right. Um, yeah, I am fascinated by the psychology of this, and maybe this is for another discussion. But I'm curious. Do you think the whole thing about if it doesn't get a certain amount of clicks or likes, then it should be deleted? Is that just a teenage mindset that they'll grow out of, or is this something that you think they'll carry through their adult years?
Well, I mean, in some ways, it's sort of how society works. If you've got a television show that doesn't have enough viewers, you cancel the show.
Right.
Uh, if you are a celebrity and you don't sell enough tickets or albums or subscribers, you're not a celebrity anymore. So I wonder if they're just sort of mimicking what they see us adults doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I've started to delete things that if they don't get any interaction or engagement, I delete them.
Is it like because we're embarrassed that like, oh, I thought this was so cool and nobody else did. Man, I don't want people to know that I thought it was cool and
Yeah,
nobody else did.
I know. Sometimes, yeah, I think that is part of it
Yeah.
sometimes.
No, it's interesting. It's definitely, like you said, a psychology.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Are there any examples that you can think of? Now, this doesn't have to be with you personally. You've done a lot of research, and I'm curious if you can think of any examples going back 10 or 15 years where something was posted in, now this would be like around the year 2000, and then 15 years later it came back to haunt somebody. Can you think of any stories?
I thought about this the other day, actually, and when we were in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had internet access at that point for about 4 years. I was still in chat rooms on AOL with supervise, like
Yeah, yeah,
still moderators.
yeah.
Um,
Great point.
so
I think we're coming up around the 10-year mark, I'd say, for social media.
yeah, so I mean, we really were able to ease our way into it and really get comfortable. It's the kids now that are really the ones who are put out there by themselves. But I think about this. I wrote a blog post about Donald Sterling, and he was the owner of the basketball team that said things without knowing he was saying them and got in trouble. Uh,
Yeah.
so from Donald Sterling to Donald Trump and Anthony Weiner. There are lots of examples of people out there who just not by being aware of how their words and actions could possibly come back and haunt them, whether they knew they were putting them online or they didn't know. I want my students to know that there are long-term consequences sometimes to things like sexting and inappropriate language and pictures. And even though today it might get a laugh, tomorrow that laugh could turn into something more serious.
Yeah, Donald Trump is a good example because that audio was 11 years old.
Yeah. So again,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't type it, but he knew
Mm-hmm.
he knew he was being recorded. And
Right.
it's just a shame that, if people just had a good moral code, then nobody would ever get in trouble. But that's not always possible, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole other show.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what are the top three, would you say, social media platforms then for the best, I should say the best ones for creating your digital footprint?
I'm gonna give you four.
Give me
Uh,
four. Okay.
I think by far Twitter. It's where we can learn. It's where we can share. It's where we can build relationships with professionals. LinkedIn, because it's
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to need by the time they get to college and they look into internships. And many of my students who get to college are friending me on LinkedIn, so I know they're active.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think YouTube, again, for the learning, but also this really gives them an opportunity to create and to demonstrate their own expertise and their own passions.
Hmm.
And then 4 is any blogging apparatus that you choose to use. I know you love WordPress,
Hmm.
but because we're a Google school, my kids are using Blogger. I don't
Okay.
want them paying for accounts anyway.
Okay.
It's good practice, but
Yeah.
certainly, you know, WordPress is where it's at on the professional end.
Yeah. And there is WordPress.com, which is free as well.
Yeah, but we sort of made a promise with our parents when we became a Google school and opened our kids up to Google Plus and Gmail that we
Yeah.
were going to use Google Apps when we could because we could sort of control the environment on the back
Yeah.
end.
Oh, I totally understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for the school setting, it works.
Do you guys have Google Fiber down there?
We are getting it. From what I saw, it's sort of starting to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would love it. But no, not to this point. I see some fiber optics from AT&T getting laid down, but we don't even have access to that yet either.
You will love it. I'm from Kansas City and my parents have it. They've had it for a few years now and it's really great.
Oh, they said it's like 4,000 times faster or something, some crazy number.
Yeah, it's really nice. Um, so, Jason, do you think a person can share too much positive posts? Like, if, for example, hypothetical, Lisa only shares her best and never is transparent and shares anything, like a obstacle or hardship, or she's never really authentic. Do you think that that's making a strong digital footprint?
So you just used like 4 of the words I would use to answer your question. I think you're spot on. Uh, it comes up a lot in class, and we had a guest speaker once who I will not name who really focused on everything you put out there has got to be perfect.
Mm,
And here's what I'll say about that. It's important to be authentic, just like you said. The minute you start faking it, people are going to figure you out. Um, so we want to give your audience a glimpse into the life in a way that aligns with the things you love. But we also want to make sure we leave something for the imagination.
mm,
You don't want to post everything. Um, but ultimately, if what you're sharing, posting, tweeting, it's rooted in what you love and it aligns with what your long-term, short-term goals are, I say share away. Focus on your
mm.
highlights, but also, like you said, your adversity, things you've overcome, accomplishments. Anything negative can hopefully be turned into a learning experience or a teachable moment. And that's when I'll send them back to their blogs and to their YouTube channels and say, all right, this would be a great blog post.
Hmm.
How this forced you to grow as a person. Um, and so far, so good.
What's your opinion about rants?
I don't encourage them. I will tell we have a school paper online and it's a blog, and I encourage my kids to get on there and leave comments, and they sometimes want to rant.
Hmm.
So I remind them that they should be respectful, they
Hmm.
should contribute to a conversation, and they should, ask a question that will continue and make the writer want to answer their comment. But to rant and go on and on and on, not what I'm really encouraging. I have to stop myself, especially in the last 3 months with this political situation. My
Hmm.
friends are posting crazy things, and I want to say, but I don't. I
Yeah.
I might type a few words, but I delete it and let the moment pass.
What about like just like the one or two sentence, oh, the dog just pooped on the floor type little complaints? Are those productive and beneficial at all?
I Yeah, so I don't think so. I don't tell a student that they can't share that information,
Hmm.
but I do remind them that there's an audience, and if you're comfortable with the audience seeing what you're sharing and you feel as if it is rooted in your passion and where you're going, then ultimately you make the call. It's not something that I do.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
very careful with what I share, and if I have to rant, I have a wife. I have parents. I can rant to them and complain to them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so to wrap this up, Jason, I want to ask you, where do you see digital personal branding? Where do you see personal branding going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I am hoping that I publish a book. Every school in America decides that their computer apps class is outdated and they want to adopt computer apps 21.7. They buy my book, and every school across America is teaching kids that citizenship is not just when they are looking at the American flag, but it is in their everyday actions, it's in their everyday words, it's online, it's offline.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe with your help, I can become the guru of personal branding for America.
Oh, with my help. Okay. Jason, you're definitely somebody that we want to keep an eye on. I love your passion for this topic and your vision. And it's going to be pretty cool to see how things develop for you over the next few years.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Matthew.
Yeah, so if people want to keep in touch with you and follow you, where can they find you?
So Twitter, at Schaffer_Jason. Or I have a website. It is mybrandprofessor.com. Okay. And I would love for anyone to check me out and say hello.
Awesome. Jason, it's been great having you on the Blog Chronicles today. Really enjoyed this conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on YouTube or iTunes and leave a rating or review to help other bloggers find us. If you want to chat, look me up on Twitter at Matt Loomis. So who is going to be my next guest on the Blog Chronicles? He's a prolific blogger, social media expert, and published author from the Midwest who loves helping people grow their audience and generate higher incomes using smart, effective social media sharing strategies and creating valuable blog content with a purpose that your audience will flock to and share. Come back next time and find out who is next up on the Blog Chronicles.